India Tonight, I'm Karan Thapar. As allegations and accusations swirl around the UPA left presidential candidate, Arun Shourie has released two detailed articles analysing the charges in the Pratibha Patil Sahkari bank case and the background of the alleged murder cover-up. If accurate, what Shourie reveals is potentially devastating. In a moment, I shall question Arun Shourie about his findings. Arun Shourie, you've written two lengthy and well-researched articles analysing the main charges against Pratibha Patil, and although they haven't as yet been published in newspapers in the north, I gather they've already begun to appear in newspapers in South India, and of course the articles are available on the net. Let's start with the one that investigates her connection with the Pratibha Patil Sahkari bank. Am I right in saying, first of all, that she was chairperson of the bank from its establishment in 1973 all the way till it was closed down by the RBI in 2003. And in fact, in addition, you also have proof that she virtually ran the place.
Yes, she established it. It is on her in her biodata in the Lok Sabha when she was a member of that. It is in her biodata as governor of the Reserve of Rajasthan. Her close connection, and she takes pride in this fact. Second point is that even in 2002 documents, she is always referred to as the founder chairperson. Third, there is a resolution dated 22 January 2002 of the bank's board of directors that she will appoint all the officers, or the bank directors and so on, and who will do what. Much in the Congress tradition. But third, more important is that when, as you said, the bank was being liquidated, there is a communication from the manager of the bank to the then chairperson in 2003 saying that these negotiations with the employees have taken place in the presence of upasthiti of Srimati Pratibha Patil, the founder president.
Okay, so we've established that she virtually ran the place. She was founder chairman for 30 years till it was closed down. There's no question of her being not involved with the bank.
And her own relatives and brothers and sisters and their wives and everybody are getting, her nieces and nephews are getting loans, and she doesn't know.
Absolutely. But before we come to that, let's come to one other thing first. In 1995, the bank was investigated by the RBI, who concluded that it was not being managed properly, and they then placed it on what's called the weak list of banks. Yes. Did the management of the bank, under chairperson Pratibha Patil, take steps to remedy the bank's financial position?
That's a very important point. Actually not. That is why eventually the Reserve Bank of India, after several other inquiries, after a confidential inquiry also, eventually it orders its liquidation on the ground that its continuance is harmful to the interests of the depositors. And please remember who the depositors are. These small little ladies who contribute 1 rupee a month for, they are selling flowers, they are selling vegetables, rag pickers, they are the depositors.
Let me quote from that order of the RBI closing down this bank. It's dated the 25th of February 2003. It's part of your articles. The RBI said allowing the bank to carry on banking business would be detrimental to the interest of the present and future depositors, and hence the license is hereby cancelled. How damning a verdict is that?
There can't be anything more damning. You're liquidating the bank, you are closing the bank, and you have these very detailed Reserve Bank of India reports.
And those are the reports which substantiate that the RBI had decided this was a mismanaged, badly run bank.
Absolutely. They go into great details, and please remember that there's actually a case going on in the Bombay High Court about this bank, and Mrs. Pratibha Patil is respondent number 8 today.
Absolutely. So just to take a little conclusion at this point, there is no way that Pratibha Patil can wriggle out of the charge that under her chairpersonship, this was a badly managed bank.
Of course. How can she?
And in fact, you mentioned the court case at the Aurangabad bench of the Bombay High Court. Am I right in saying that the accusations she faces there are mismanagement of the bank and misappropriation of its funds?
Indeed. And those are borne out by the internal audit of the bank also.
When you say the internal audit, you mean the internal audit done by the RBI?
No, it's a bank's own audit in 1997. You see, 95, the bank, the Reserve Bank says it's a weak bank. Start inquiring. They do various things. They have their own confidential inquiry.
So its own audit establishes that the bank itself is badly run.
Absolutely.
Now let's come to what many would consider an even more worrying aspect. We go beyond management and mismanagement to actual potential charges, and I use the words carefully, of corruption and nepotism. Your article establishes that right at the top of the list of defaulting loan takers were in fact Pratibha Patil's brothers, her sisters-in-law, her nephews and her nieces. Loans to family members such as them totaling 2.25 crore have been declared non-performing assets, and a further 41 lakh worth of interest for these people was waived. To begin with, is it fitting that a bank that's set up as a cooperative to empower poor women should be giving loans to such people?
Yes, indeed, and to men also.
And to men.
Her brother, her nephews, what were they behind that Islamic veil that she's protesting against? That the bank managers did not see them?
So when her family members avail of loans which they shouldn't, and then when they default on paying them, and then when in addition even the interest is waived, is this not tantamount to nepotism and corruption?
Of course it is. And that is why when the bank is liquidated, all this is brought out, and the liquidator who's appointed, the chief administrator of the bank, sends a formal communication to the bank manager asking him to explain all these things. There is a formal communication from it's a notice from the chief administrator listing all these fellows who got these loans. How did they get them?
Let me just interrupt and point out to the audience, and I hope in fact the studio takes a wide shot to show this, that you have on the table in front of you sheafs of documents, literally maybe 2 inches high. Those are documents that verify and establish all the items that are in fact in your articles.
Oh, but actually the documents we have are about 700 pages.
This is just a selection.
Just a selection.
Now let's come back to your article. Your article establishes that under her chairpersonship the bank was mismanaged. We've discussed that. Your article establishes that in fact loans were wrongly given to her family members and then they defaulted on paying them back. We've established that. In fact, your article goes a step further. You also quote letters and memos from the bank's union, the Pratibha Mahila Sahakari Karmachari Sangh, and the union claims that firstly, her brother Dalip Singh Patil was given a bank phone which he installed in his residence, which he used for his own stock market purposes and ran up a bill of 20 lakhs. That secondly, unsecured loans and therefore unlawful loans were given to her sugar cooperative. And thirdly, that she got jobs for her family within the bank, overriding requirements for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe quotas. How confident are you of these additional allegations the union makes?
Actually, it's not just the union. Just to add the point, it is the communication of the chief executive officer, chief administrator appointed for the liquidation of the bank. He is saying all this about the phone, about the scheduled caste employees not being taken on board and the jobs being given. He says to people close to the members of the board of directors, or every one of them is in the notice given by the liquidator to the bank manager.
And the liquidator is someone the RBI appointed when they closed down the bank.
Well, in this case, it is the cooperative department which oversees this. See, RBI says, close it, and the cooperative department then starts the proceedings for closure and appoints the liquidator.
And now all of this, the allegations made by the liquidator, the allegations of mismanagement...
Not allegations, but facts found by him.
The facts found by him, as well as the facts about giving loans to her family members, the facts that they've defaulted, the mismanagement, all of that is part of the case at the Aurangabad bench of the Bombay High Court.
Yes, and it should be.
And if in that case she's found guilty, then you could potentially have a president for the first time being found guilty of defalcation of funds, assuming before she gets elected.
Well, in any case, even if the family has run away with these funds, it's not just distant relatives and so on. These are brothers, there are nephews, and none of them would have got a penny out of the bank but for the fact that it was her own bank which she was running.
Your article quotes several times from union memos put up by the Bank Employees Union. There's one in particular that I want to read out to you. On the 3rd of December 2001, the union writes, founder chairperson Pratibha Patil has facilitated the loot of large sums of money in the form of unlawful loans without surety extended to her own relatives and people close to her family. In your eyes, based upon the extensive research you've done, based upon those piles of documents in front of you, would you say that's a fair comment or an exaggerated one?
No, it's an understatement.
It's an understatement.
Because, you see, firstly, the employees, when do they write this? When they are seeing their own jobs being completely, in jeopardy. Secondly, they are from within the bank. They know exactly what is happening. Third, all this is then corroborated. This is not just a letter being written by them to her. They have been writing to the Reserve Bank, they write to the Maharashtra government, because they know that their jobs will go if the bank is run this way.
A small interruption. So in fact, when you say they write to the RBI, to the Maharashtra government, they have informed all the authorities possible of the details, and these details are therefore well known to everyone.
In fact, to the Minister of State for Finance, who then wrote to the Reserve Bank of India, and that is how the Reserve Bank of India started an inquiry.
So even the government at the centre is aware of the extensive mismanagement, potential nepotism and potential corruption that's gone into the running of this bank under her chairpersonship.
And they have found that out to be true, and that's how they liquidated it.
One more bit of union documentation that I want to quote to you. Your article showed that on the 13th of March 2002, the President, the Vice President and the Secretary of the Bank Employees Union wrote directly to Pratibha Patil and said, "There is a threat to our lives and to the lives of our family members from you. You have already communicated this to us in our meeting with you. If something happens to us, accidentally or otherwise, you will be responsible." Could it really be the case that Pratibha Patil even threatened union leaders?
Please see. This is not a letter written now. It is written immediately after that meeting in March 2002. There's nothing that is being done now. Everything is at that time, contemporaneous evidence.
But you believe the charge that she threatened them?
Well, I think so. Look at what her husband is involved in other matters. Look at what the brother is involved in, we can take up.
So then let's sum up this section before we take a break. What does this whole story and all the details that you've established of her handling of the Pratibha Mahila Sahakari Bank actually establish? Is it corruption and nepotism to start with?
Yes, and when they get caught, then other things happen like threats and, much more that
and it in fact goes all the way to threatening union leaders if that letter that I quoted is accurate.
In fact, you will find out that it will go much further than just mere threats.
There's much more yet to come out. Let's take a break. I want to come back, and in part 2, I want to talk to you about your second article, which looks at the background behind the accusation that she's protecting her brother against charges of conspiracy to murder. That's in a moment's time after the